Why would you get rid of a good thing? Do you have enough copium to get through the rest of the season if you're a Ferrari fan or a McLaren fan? Welcome to Tinfoil Helmets, your occasional spicy hot take roundup with all the latest F1 rumors with the almost believable conspiracy theories to back them up. Everything here has been carefully researched for hours to make sure it's totally founded in logic, reason, and truth. Or not. Who knows? So that was Imola. Dominic, should we check if we got anything right?
We should see if we got anything right and see if we have improved our appalling statistics this year.
I don't think we did.
Well, no, I don't think we did. Someone's upgrades didn't work at all. It appears everybody's upgrades kind of worked.
Yeah, Ferrari didn't bring an upgrade. Or
not a very big one. They did, but it wasn't very big.
Right. They had good race pace. Qualifying pace, not so much.
Yeah.
Aston's looked good.
Theirs worked. They seem to work at least partially.
Yeah. Red Bull, I believe, brought an update, and it seems good.
Yeah, I don't know whether it was good or whether it didn't do anything.
Well, as long as you don't go tumbling through a gravel pit, it's pretty good.
True. That is a good question. I don't know if Yuki got all the new upgraded parts after he caused an issue with his car.
We'll talk about that.
Yes.
There was no rain.
Nope. Ferrari did not try anything stupid, and it didn't work.
I mean, they tried not going to Q3.
They tried. The clear demarcation of this is they did lots of stupid things, but they didn't try to do something stupid that might work. So I want to be clear on the expectations.
They left Charles out for the second safety car period, and yeah, that didn't work.
Yeah, and I don't even think they were trying to be clever. They were just being stupid.
Also, how do you have no tires at that point in time? I'm very confused.
Well, it was a suspicious track with suspicious cars and suspicious weather and suspicious things.
Yes, nothing of that ever happens in Italy.
No, exactly. Lewis, I predicted would win and has a great experience, but he will then also not win in Monza. I think, actually, he had a good race, but it still leaves it open for him to win in Monza.
I think he had a good experience overall.
Yeah, the pictures post-race with him in fourth made him look great.
Yeah, I think
was it fifth?
Fourth, I believe. The real question is, how many more laps before you would have been on the podium?
I know. I reckon it was about another 5 laps, maybe 6.
I think 5 is the right number. Teammates almost come together in a crash. So close.
Who was this? Because I don't remember quite who this was.
The Lando Oscar pass in the last 5 laps.
Oh, I did that. That wasn't that close.
They were close.
They were close.
Closer than probably Zach Brown would have liked them to be.
Ooh, yeah, maybe. It is the era of Lando Norris.
The era of Lando Norris?
The era of Lando Norris.
Yeah.
So in conclusion, we got nothing right. Good job.
Yeah. Yeah. We did so great.
We did so great. Maybe there's some between race drama that will save our excitement levels here.
There was a lot of between race scuttlebutt. Some of it good, some of it not so good. And I realized we don't even have Alpine firing their team principal and Flavio Briatore coming in on the in between race drama.
I forgot about that.
And Alpine and his brother escaping to Dubai with a bunch of money or something like that.
Yeah, his brother was arrested. Ollie. For what's his name?
Oaks?
Oliver Oaks, yes. His brother was arrested in Dubai. No, his brother was arrested in Silverstone after he was found hanging around near the track with a bag full of £100,000 or more. It was a little ridiculous. There was not any context on specifically why he did that. But then he had to rush, not the brother. I mean, Oliver's still a brother, but not the brother that's been arrested. The brother that wasn't arrested, that used to be the team principal. He had to rush to Dubai because his other company, High Tech Race Cars, had its cars impounded in Dubai for reasons that are unclear to me. I
seem to recall something about this of this is the whole what's his name, Mazepin oligarch situation.
Yes.
They sold things and they were laundering money potentially to skirt sanctions, and that's why why there was a big bag of money and cars impounded, and everybody was yes. Are the F2 and F3 teams going to show up at Imola? And they did. Without the high-tech branding, I believe.
Oh, interesting. I didn't see that. Did you notice that Oliver Oaks was in Imola partaking?
I heard about this.
And it's very confusing, given that it's the Alpine team and the other guy that runs it is Flavio Briatore, that you decide to quit the role at Alpine because you couldn't cope with the spotlight? It's very confusing. Like, there's nothing wrong. He could have continued to run Alpine, and he would have still been less dodgy than Flavio Briatore.
Wait, did he quit? I thought he was fired.
No, he quit. They put out mutual statements saying, I chose to leave to deal with a very personal issue. And Flavio was like, Oliver's great. We didn't fire him. And I actually, for once, because of all the story about his brother and bags of cash and the Mazepins and sanctions and cars being impounded and a whole ball of wax, I actually believe it. I do actually believe it.
Or, and I think this is equally likely, Flavio's schemes have gotten more complex.
Okay. And so, how is Flavio involved in this?
I mean, he just handed his brother a big bag of money outside Silverstone and said, "Can you hold this for a minute?"
I got it. This was how he was going to wrest control back of the team to make it his.
Yes.
Okay.
Like, the only reason that if it was any other person, I would believe the above board story. But given the history that is Flavio Briatore, somehow he is involved in all this to make this happen for somebody who was banned from the sport and then got his ban overturned so he could slowly come back into the sport. No, this feels like a 20-year like project of like how he can get back to being where he wants to be after Crashgate. No, yeah, it all seems plausible, but at the same point in time, a news story could break tomorrow that says like, actually, Flavio was like this informant for the British police to tell about Oliver Oaks' brother having this bag of cash, and I'd be like, yeah, that checks out. Yeah,
100%. It is important to note that Flavio is not listed or said to be the interim team principal or team principal. He is just like, I can't remember what the title was that they used, but like he is running the team, but he's not taken on that role. But this also means that they've now had 3 or 4 team principals in 2 years.
This feels like Joseph Stalin having the title of general secretary is like, well, we know that's not the leader's position, but that's the one you like, so we're just going to keep calling the leader of the Communist Party the general secretary. Like, yeah.
Exactly. He's not culpable because he's not in a position of power.
Yeah. So when the inevitable happens, it's like, well, I am not the team principal, so I am not in charge. The team principals did go out to dinner. Was he there? Did he go?
I
think
know.
He did.
I think. Well, you got to have someone representing the team. So
right, like a principal, so to speak, of the team.
Yeah, for the team. Yeah, exactly. But not the team principal. Words matter, Andrew. Words matter. So yes, there was an Alpine. I didn't entirely forget.
Yeah, tell Flavio that.
I had entirely forgotten about that. I had not forgotten about the other Alpine drama, but we'll save that for our occasional segment.
Well, it's important for that segment.
True. Yes.
Yeah.
Also, we have a new F1 driver on the scene. His name is Franz Hermann, and it turns out he put in a lap record at the Nürburgring.
Allegedly.
In
traffic.
And by a good 4 or 5 seconds, I think it was.
Yes,
it was pretty good. Then some people came out and claimed this new driver, Franz Hermann, had cheated, and then Franz Hermann got on his Twitter account. Well, not really his Twitter account. He used his friend's Twitter account because he's not on Twitter. His friend's Max Verstappen, and said, "No, you don't know what it is. I would look like an idiot if I came to a thing with the wrong balance of power." And so, and this is going to sound really weird. I do actually believe Franz Hermann is. He doesn't need to do a glory run. His experience precedes him, and so I actually believe that this is actually the case.
Yeah, so it looks like Max Verstappen might be angling to do the 24 hours of the Nürburgring, which is kind of cool. That. Yeah. It should be noted that the guy who was throwing around the accusations that he was using not the 24 hours of the Nürburgring spec car is the current lap record holder in the GT3 car that Max would have taken this record away from, I believe, if it wasn't just a random ass day at the Nürburgring. So
it wasn't a random ass day. It was a test day. It was a formal test day for GT3.
Sure. He still did it in traffic, though. It was pretty impressive. But yeah, so he was saying that Max wasn't in the proper spec, and Max just pretty much replied of yeah, no, we were. It was pretty much it.
If it was Fernando Alonso, I would believe that Fernando Alonso would cheat. Or maybe not cheat, but it's a test day, so you can't really cheat on it. I would believe that he would do that. But this is Max, and I don't believe he needs a glory run because he's Max Verstappen.
The interesting thing in all this is there are rules, apparently, for the 24 hours of the Nordschleife about having the appropriate driving license and experience levels required to take part. that Max does not have and will not seem to get in time. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see if he gets a pass for being Max Verstappen or not. It's one of those things of they've been very strict in the past about, well, these are the qualification requirements. You either meet them or you don't. But at the same point in time, if you have a chance for somebody like Max Verstappen to race your race, I think the guy has more than proved himself time and time again in the car. So yeah.
Two other things. I also heard that it was a prep for Le Mans 2024. Would that get him into the Nordschleife if he did it in Le Mans?
No, I think it was specifically like Nordschleife events. Like
you got to do enough miles on the Nordschleife. That actually makes a lot of sense of doing that.
Yeah. Because if I remember correctly about the 24-hour of the Nordschleife, is they don't have Le Mans prototype cars there. They are deemed, I think, too quick or too dangerous to go around the track. That the fastest cars are GT3s.
I believe so.
Yeah.
The other point was Max is up until 2:00 this morning at sim racing.
So. Of course he is.
Yeah.
Well, new babies, like, what are their sleep schedules? They're all over the place.
Exactly. So yes, Franz Hermann, he was also in the F1 race. He did a great job. Sorry, his name's Max. I keep getting it confused. They look so similar, but they're different people.
There was some scuttlebutt of somebody named Hermann Franz was apparently a very unsavourable character between 1941 and 1945 in Germany. And it's like, why would Max choose this as his name? And it's like, but he didn't. And apparently it might be like his grandfather's name. So, yeah.
His grandfather was an unsavory character.
No. His grandfather was Franz Hermann, not Hermann Franz.
Okay.
Yeah. So some people were stirring up just random stuff because they could, because names are weird.
Speaking of unpleasantry in the world, there were shenanigans, or continuing to be shenanigans, at the FIA. I will say that there's not initially a lot going on, but there's definitely something going on. The only thing I will take away from it is I think Carlos Sainz Sr., who says he's going to run for president, should in fact be president of the FIA, because he doesn't strike me as being completely bent as a two-pod bit.
Yeah. I think we've heard Susie Wolff and Claire Williams' names thrown around as well in different spots. Maybe not Claire Williams, but definitely Susie Wolff.
Yeah, Susie. Speaking of Claire Williams, definitely recommend the podcast that she did, the F1 on the Grid. She did it last week, I think it was. It's actually a really good interview. Apparently she's only been back to Williams twice since they sold it.
Oh, we found out more about the guy who bought Williams.
I did see this story.
Yeah.
What was this? He's some kind of weird recluse?
Yeah, he's just some weird recluse that has $1 billion, and he bought it through this venture capital firm. And so, but yeah, there was some court filing that actually named who he was. So we know there is actually somebody who specifically bought Williams to buy Williams.
And just to be clear, for those that choose to read about this story, it says Jersey. It doesn't mean coffee Jersey. It means rich tax haven Jersey off the coast of England, closer to France, really.
Not heading down to the boardwalk to get a cannoli?
Correct.
Another absolute crazy conspiracy theory that I don't think has ended up being true yet was that this is going to be Christian Horner's last race with Red Bull because he was going to step down and also run for the FIA presidency.
I don't particularly want him to run it, but it would be hilarious for him to run it.
It would be hilarious if he stepped down from Red Bull got better than they were, and then he tried to come back and Red Bull was like, we're good.
Maybe that's why Red Bull was good this weekend, is while he's still there, he's basically started to, undock himself from the company already, and we're just waiting for the rumoured announcement.
I love it. Let's do it.
Great. Perfect. Speaking of people who used to work for Red Bull, Adrian Newey has categorically stated that he is not working on the 2025 Aston Martin car. He's focused on 2026. But he did have lunch with the small team who are working on the 2025 car. And apparently, based on the performance this weekend, maybe it worked. Which would be great if you can just be like, between bites of your ham and cheese sandwich and your, corporate issue coffee, glug, 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 oh, you should change these things on the car. Oh, that sounds like a good idea. And look at the performance. You get it up into Q3.
Well, we also know that Adrian Newey does not believe in CAD software. So the best you could, if you can't have him drawing on like some sort of drafting board, a back of the envelope napkin is like the next best thing.
Good
I mean,
point.
You're going to have to put it into CAD form anyway. So, hey, Adrian, how we've thought about maybe a triple diffuser. How would you get that to work?
Perfect. Love it.
Yeah.
Next, everybody, including myself, have been linked with the Cadillac seat for 2026. I'm debating whether this is the right career move for me, but I think I've got it. Also, I'm up against Perez, Ricciardo, Schumacher, and Pato O'Ward as well. So everybody's been linked to the seats, and there's only 2 of them. Again, I just like to reiterate for the record, if they pick Perez, they're not a serious team.
I'm not sure that's true.
Oh, I hold that. That's very true. If you pick Ricciardo, you can be a serious team because you think he might be improved. Schumacher, you're on the bubble, but it's okay because he's doing all right in WEC. Pato O'Ward, I think he could be quite good, but not Perez.
Yeah, I don't know. It's an interesting thing. I don't know who I would put in the Cadillac seat right now.
It is very unclear what kind of car that's going to be. So.
Yeah, and it's also very unclear, kind of, because like also in the day and age of with everybody having their driver academy and things, it's a little bit harder to have somebody like Ollie Berman come into your team if he's tied to Ferrari and things like that, unless he gets out of that contract. And I think they are going to be using Ferrari power for the first couple of years, right?
Correct.
So maybe somebody, yeah. So maybe somebody like a Ferrari driver would be the right way to go. It's all over the place. I think it would be very interesting to put like Perez and Ricciardo in that seat. Both of them. I think that would be very interesting just from the standpoint of, we had a lot of debate over the last year or so of like, should Daniel be in the main Red Bull seat with Max or not? So I actually just get to see them side by side. I'm not sure Daniel wants to be back in Formula One after his last outing. Dear God, Liam still looks like crap. I don't know who Cadillac should put in that seat. But I think, I think some of it is as a new team on the grid, you have to have some sort of signing that like makes people excited.
True, and Perez would bring excitement with him.
Yeah. The more interesting way, because, let's not forget F1 is now an American entity because it is owned by Liberty, is if they allowed some sort of expansion draft, like what they do when like a new baseball team or NFL team or NHL team is created, and just every team is allowed to protect one driver, and then Cadillac has the pick of the remaining drivers they can draft from the other teams.
Oh, that would be hilarious. So, supposedly, Perez is on the list at Mercedes if George Russell chooses to leave.
Yeah.
Which makes 0 sense to me.
But could you imagine, like, at this point in the season, like, let's say the F1 decided to do an expansion draft, like, after this European triple header that we're going through right now. Red Bull obviously protects Max. Who does McLaren protect if they can only protect one driver? Who does Mercedes protect?
Kimi.
Yeah, probably.
And then
I assume Ferrari.
Who does Ferrari protect?
They would probably protect Charles. I think they should protect Lewis, because I think Charles would be a better driver outside of the Ferrari system.
Oh, possibly.
Yeah.
You just want to see Ferrari grind Lewis down, and you need to see that happen.
No, I want to see what Charles can do in a car that's not powered by Ferrari. But granted, I don't think the Cadillac car is going to be a good car next year.
No, I am very hopeful for next year being a bit of more of a reset than I think maybe you would suspect between two of the things, because it's no longer ground effect and it's got all the other fancy stuff on it. So.
Sure, actually, it could be. In some ways, it's good for Cadillac that they're not in this season. And maybe they will be actually a competitive team next year, because all the teams this year are focusing on kind of building the 2026 car and racing the 2025 season. And all Cadillac have to do is focus on building the 2026 car.
And they are ahead of schedule because they crash tested the car recently and it passed. So they've clearly got a car.
Yeah.
Turns out they tested a Cadillac, an actual Cadillac.
A land yacht with 16 feet of engine compartment in front of the driver's cell.
It wouldn't be that much larger than the current F1 car, given how big they are.
It really wouldn't.
Yeah. So there's a new mini section here, Tech Corner, and I've seen the headlines in this one, but I did not read the details, so I'm looking forward to being edumacated.
So we know from so we know from Miami and kind of going into Miami that Red Bull are kind of accusing McLaren of some shadiness around how they are. They've pointed thermal cameras and they showed thermal cameras to the FIA of just how much cooler McLaren is able to keep their brake system, and thus then the heat's not bleeding into the tires, and then they're able to do this so much better than any other team. No other team can do anything like this. Red Bull's speculation was like they put water in the tires because if you think back to your high school chemistry, water is very good at maintaining temperature one way or the other. It's a very good insulator. So there was this question of what's going on? How is this possible? Red Bull's like, are they doing something shady? The FIA inspected the rear brakes of the McLaren after the Miami Grand Prix, took it, I think it was kind of like a behind closed doors, take it all apart, show us what you're doing, make sure it's all on the up and up. And they came out at that meeting and said, yeah, everything's on the up and up. So everybody was trying to figure out what is going on. And there's this guy named Pantos Brizas, which I probably absolutely butchered that name. If you are that person and you happen to listen to this podcast, you want to come on and tell us all about this? Because I'm fascinated. But apparently he got his PhD while he was working at the Woking outfit. I have to say that because it's too good of a phrase not to. And his whole PhD dissertation was in phase change materials. So if we think back to our high school chemistry, we're really going off the conspiracy bandwagon and putting on a real more boffin-ass nerdy shit. For our UK listeners, correctly use the term.
Correct.
Yeah, so if you think back to your high school chemistry and all, it takes a certain amount of energy to raise water 1 degree Celsius. Like 1 joule is what it takes to raise 1 gram of water 1 degree Celsius or something like that. But if you remember, it takes a lot of energy to get a material to change phase. From a liquid to a gas or a solid to a liquid. So, it takes a lot to melt ice. It takes a lot more energy for ice to go from ice to water than it does for ice to go from 30 degrees or -1 Celsius to 0 Celsius. So the concept here is that they are using phase change materials in their brakes to act as a cooling system, so that all this heat that's getting generated is causing this solid material to melt and absorb this sort of heat. And then, as soon as it cools off, it solidifies again because it takes so much more energy to cause this reaction to take place. Apparently, it's very hard to get a material that operates at the exact good material or working window for F1 brakes. So it's going to be, so if this is what they're doing, it's going to be very hard for another team to copy right away because you actually have to almost have a PhD in phase change materials to figure out exactly what was going on. But the concept is Red Bull might have actually been right in the sense of they were using water to cool things, but they weren't actually using water. They were using this phase change material. And this is why we see in Miami, everybody's pace fell off except for the McLarens. And why the McLarens have had such good tire life is because this brake heat isn't bleeding into the tires and causing the tires to overheat. And that's why they have such good tire longevity.
Is this saying that within the cooling duct / the brake drum / everything else, within the main body, the thing that's kind of the second level material inside does the phase change and stays contained within it? Okay, that makes sense. That makes sense. Why do we believe
it's an insulator of sorts?
Yeah. Why do we believe it's Panos Brizas? Is he still at McLaren?
It was when he was. It was either he kind of pioneered it or was working with McLaren when they kind of figured it out. He was. And he did his PhD in this. He is kind of if you were to go find the world leading expert in kind of phase change materials for F1 applications, it would be this person. And it might not have been, they might not have implemented it until last year, and it was kind of a work in progress and all, because I think he got his PhD in 23 or 24.
Oh.
So, from what I remember reading. But yeah, he was with them for a while. I think they were trying to make it work, and I think they might have finally gotten it to work.
Which is interesting because Lando Norris has been complaining about the brakes for a few races. In fact, a whole of this season, he says they don't feel good to him, they don't give him the brake feel that he needs.
Yeah.
And Pascal Piastri. That's interesting because that might make sense between the two not phase changes. The step change in brake performance may bring with it odd and unexpected feelings.
Well, the interesting thing there is it actually should keep the brakes a more consistent temperature, which might not be something that because Lando's been in the team now for 6 years, 5-6 years, longer than you think. Lando's been in the team for a while now, and it could be that and Oscar hasn't. Oscar's still relatively new, and it could be that like Oscar has always had to deal with this sort of brake thing, and Lando is now dealing with this new brake system.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, maybe he's just not as used to it as Oscar is. Or maybe it just fits Oscar's driving style better. But there's definitely something going on here. But it should keep I could imagine like if the brakes are heating up as much as they did, it might have a different feel to them. And maybe that's kind of what's going on. But it's definitely, it seems to be, if this is what's going on, because this is all speculation. We don't have any evidence one way or the other than there is no FIA rule that says you can't use a phase change material like this in your brake system. So, and we know it all passed. We know from the thermal cams that Red Bull has that they're doing something different from everybody else. So like it all checks out that this is what they're doing. And if it is what they're doing, it's part of the reason that F1 is awesome.
I love science. Science is great. Other than Panos Brazas having an excellent job or having had an excellent job, should we see if other people in our occasional segment have continued to have jobs?
Sure, let's do it.
Well, we fired someone. We fired Jack Doohan. And we put in Franco Colapinto, like everybody said he was going to happen after 5 races. It turns out everybody was right 2 months ago. But maybe that wasn't the right choice, because it turns out Franco binned it.
Also, like, apparently Franco also just has a 5-race contract or 6-race contract.
Yes. This is going to be great. So 5 races from now, he's not good off to a good start. This was not a good weekend for Franco. And not wishing to telegraph his performance in both qualification and the racing, I will say I think his problem is last year he had nothing to lose. So he just went out and drove the car. He knew he wasn't going to be in the seat for the next season. I mean, there was a possibility he might, but like he knew he wasn't, so he was just going to go out and enjoy life. But now there's something on the line, and he's like driving around the back and crashing the car. He properly binned it, not as much as Yuki, but he properly binned that car, and they had to rebuild a large chunk of it, which they did, and he said thank you when he started the race. So yeah, they fired Jack Doohan, who was also at the race today because he's the reserve driver.
Yeah, gone are the days, I guess, of rookies getting a season or two under their race suit to figure out the best path forward. It's kind of sad, actually. Like,
it is kind of sad.
Yeah.
On the flip side, sometimes I feel like there should be more of the. I don't feel like it's right for like. It's going to sound slightly weird. I feel like you should have a rotating set of rookies, but you shouldn't have a rotating set of rookies on 5 races in a team that probably should have more stability than that.
But I think this goes back to a point somebody made last year that would be really great, is if sprint races were only 10 cars and contested solely by rookies.
Yep, love it. Should do that.
Yeah, I think that would be 100%.
Great. Yep. The question is does Yuki still have a job after he completely destroyed the car? Which maybe that's a good opportunity for us to talk a little bit about qualification.
I think Yuki should still have a job, although I think Isaac's gunning for that job.
Yeah. But before we go really into qualification for Formula One, we should talk about the other open seat wheeled vehicle qualification this weekend. And I believe you have a lot of information here.
Oh, yes. It's Indy 500 qualifying weekend because, well, Formula One does everything very neatly on a Friday, Saturday, Sunday. It is Indy month at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, all gearing up for the Indy 500. They've done practice for like the last 3 weeks to get to make you so that people can understand how the cars feel in speedway oval trim and all that, and try to get their setups optimized, which is amazing on a car that like are reasonably stock cars between each other. It is a spec series that that there is still decent gaps in qualifying. This year, I believe for the first time, they have a hybrid deployment system in the car.
Oh.
So generally, Indy qualifying is done over 4 laps, 10 miles, and it is your average speed over those 10 miles. I mean, it could be the time over the 10 miles. It's the same thing. But they display it as average speed. And generally you saw, like last year when there was qualifying, it was, the fastest lap was the first lap, and then you saw the pace fall off. And this year it was a lot more consistent, and people were trying to figure out when they needed to dump the battery and everything as well. So it was a little different this year. It was kind of fun. I didn't watch all 6 hours or 7 hours of qualifying yesterday, but I had it on in the background and watched a couple laps. It was fun to watch. I do think Indy 500 qualifying I think it going over Saturday and Sunday is a bit much. However, I think the system they have on Saturday is very cool in the sense of everybody goes and sets a time, and then there are 2 lanes in the pit lane. There is the priority queue and the second lane. If you are in the second lane, you keep your time. If you go out and you improve, you get the faster time, but you don't have to turn in your old time. If you are in the priority lane, you get priority access to the track, and before you get to the track, you turn in your old time, and your time is deleted. And if you improve, yay. If you don't improve, well, that's now your time. So I think that's a kind of a very cool system that you could probably do a place like Monaco and actually produce an interesting bit of qualifying.
It brings real strategy into qualifying.
It really does. And I'd just like to point out that Kyle Larson, who thinks he is better than Max Verstappen, he got out-qualified by 20 other drivers just driving around an oval.
How many were behind him?
Well, there were 34 entries and 33 will take the starts, and he qualified 21st. So he is in the back third of the grid.
Okay. Does he have an opportunity to improve that stature?
No, because the grid spots 13 through 30 are set on Saturday, and then the Fast 12 go to a Fast 12 and then Fast 6 shootout.
I see.
And the bottom 4 go to a last chance qualifying where one person will be eliminated and not allowed to take part in the Indy 500, which is hilarious.
And why is that going to be Kyle Larson?
No, it's not going to be Kyle Larson. He's in at 21st. He was in it. He had nothing to do today because he wasn't in the bottom 4 or the top 12. But I would just think it would be hilarious if, like, next year when we have Cadillac on the grid with 22 cars, it's like, no, we're only going to allow 20 to start this. And like if you have a Q1, if we take like the 6 cars that'll exit Q1 and then we let them all run again and say the bottom 2 are not taking part, like that'd be great.
That's where F1 and the drivers, and the teams who are trying to keep Cadillac from joining, they should have proposed that, because everybody would have been like, we'll be able to pull it off and those newcomers won't pull it off, and then at least Cadillac would have had an opportunity to prove they were worth it.
Yeah. One thing I will say about American sports is they are very good at the spectacle, and Indy is no different.
Perfect. Shall we talk about the qualifying?
Yeah. Actually an interesting qualifying session for the first time this year.
Unless you're a Ferrari.
I mean, that was interesting.
True, it was interesting, but they did very poorly.
I'm just saying, a lot of qualifying this year has been kind of bland. There's been like the odd thing here or there. This qualifying was a bit spicy with Yuki's crash in Q1.
Yep, that was a proper crash.
Another Halo life saved by the Halo.
I was surprised. When I watched the original bit of the clip, I was like, oh, he just binned it, and he's walking away from it. But then they went and cut to the replay. And to be fair, they took a hot minute to get to the replay after they'd showed the video of him walking away from the car. He absolutely mullered that car upside down into the catch fence, bounced off the catch fence, landed on its roof, in inverted commas, the Halo, and then bounced back onto its wheels again. And Yuki, not 10 seconds later, gets out of the car and walks away, and he looks really annoyed. And credit to Yuki, because I don't know of any other driver who would have gotten out of the car and gone like, yeah, I suppose I screwed that up, shouldn't I? Oh, well.
Yeah, I think it's, sometimes crashes like that, going back to like our high school physics class, they can look really terrible, but like the longer it's drawn out, the more chances you have to dissipate the energy instead of just like ramming into a wall as hard as you can and really testing how good the survival cell is. What there was the F2 driver a couple of years ago, though, that survival cells can only take one hit, and it hit twice, and yeah, that's not great. But it is a thing of sometimes how much longer you can dissipate a crash, the better it is. But also kind of shows why while gravel is very good for racing, it's actually not that great for stopping cars, because that's what caused Yuki to go spinning.
Yep, he wedged his wheels and went boing.
Yep. But also testament to just how safe Formula One has gotten.
Yeah, I was very pleased with that. Yeah, it was good. Good work on the technology, not good work on behalf of the car. To the point, they replaced the car. Apparently they did not. It was an entirely new car from floor to engine to wheels to who knows what else. I hope they can fix that, because otherwise it's very expensive.
Yeah, that should put Yuki in the lead of the Destructor Championships at that point. When if you're replacing a survival tub.
That was exactly the thought I was just having at that exact same moment. Yuki can finally win a championship. Yeah, so that was pretty bad. But on the flip side, talking about being exciting, Piastri and Max were duking it out like titans fighting to the death, lap after lap, trading blows.
I mean, we haven't even gotten out of Q1 yet.
No, we haven't gotten a Q1 yet. And Piastri was doing a great job and taking it to the fight, unlike, I think, his teammate, who didn't do great, and half the other team didn't do great. But, it was pretty good. Except in Q1, when Yuki decided that he was going to bin the car and cost a lot of money, Oliver Behrman was on a blinder of a lap and managed to get into P8. No, sorry, there's a news coming through. Sorry, he didn't. The red flag was thrown and he missed it by supposedly 3 seconds. Which seems weird because everybody was very suspicious about that.
Yeah, so Franco crashed, and then I'm trying to see if there's actually a decision doc for...
There was. They said that it was alerted and was showing on the gantry 3 seconds before Oliver Behrman crossed the line, which raises a lot of questions because apparently on F1 TV, and I think also Anthony Davidson on the Skypad went back and showed that was not the case. But Ollie took it on the chin and got on with his day, where he ended up qualifying P19 because they deleted his lap time because it didn't count.
Yeah, a lot of the still shots, Ollie clearly crosses the timing line, and then the red light comes on. And, there's got to be zero lag in that system. You can't be like, well, maybe it takes 3 seconds for the red lights to come on. It's like, well, then that's not good. Like,
when I saw all these headlines, I was like, oh, are these a bunch of typoed headlines? Did they mean 0.03 of a second, 0.3 of a second? No, 3 seconds. It was 3-point-something seconds.
It was very... I was watching... This is actually when I tuned into qualifying. And I was watching it, and I'm like, this is just, like... He crossed the timing line, and then it took a while for the red flags to come up. I don't...
Yeah, I know, that was... It's very surprising. And I feel he got done a dirty there by the stewards.
I would agree. I think... who's the other driver? I think Bortoletto's team, Salba, I think they had the right idea of just putting him at the end of the pit lane and sending him out, like right as Q2 started. And I think Haas should have done that with Ollie as well. It's like, no, you're in, go.
Oh, and seen exactly how badly they'd have got shot down by the FAA stewards.
Yeah, because this to me sadly feels like a baseball umpire situation of we've already made the decision, and then even though we know we're wrong, well, we've already made the decision, and we can't show that we're fallible or change things after the fact, because that could open up a whole other can of worms for everybody that already wants to relitigate Abu Dhabi 2021.
It was very frustrating. But you do raise an interesting point about they should have just stuffed him at the end of the track and said, go out and do it.
Yeah.
That is something that has been lost from Formula One. Not so much breaking the rules to... I think the right way of saying this. Like, it's one thing for performance on track, but it's another one to kind of break the rules with, safety aside, and say, go on, drive out. What are they going to do? What's the FIA going to do? They're going to stand out in front of him? Like, what's going to happen? Give it a chance. See what happens. Litigate it. Give us a bit more spicy on the side. Drive to Survive needs some spicy up. Let's add some extras to it.
And I also think sometimes you could, in extreme circumstances, I think you could say, we're going to allow 16 cars into Q2 just because,
Yes.
Yeah. And
extenuating circumstances.
Yeah, I think sometimes you gotta allow for things like that. But yeah, and then Kimi Antonelli and the Ferraris were all out in Q2. Both Williams made it into Q3. I got to tell you, at the end of Q2, when Carlos Sainz set the fastest time, I'm like, holy crap! Is Williams back all the way? Is Williams going to put it on pole at Imola?
I was really hoping that he was going to be up there, but it turns out I think it was just nobody else was trying hard enough.
I think so too, but it definitely screams that, Carlos did make the right decision last year for everybody that was second guessing him.
Except I saw a beautiful stat before we started recording. Lewis Hamilton has out-finished Carlos Sainz in every race this year.
Sure.
I'm still not sure that means it was.
Yeah, but don't those Williams look good?
Yeah, they do. They're on the upward swing. I want to see that continue into next year. That's the key. That's the thing that seals this story for the Recluse in Jersey.
Oh yeah, there are if I had to pick the surprise constructor podium team for 2026, it would be Williams.
Yeah, 100%. Speaking of surprises in qualifying, Aston Martin in P5 after putting in some blinders in Q2.
Yeah, Lance Stroll made it out of Q1 and into Q3.
Yeah, Shimmer didn't convert to the race, but that's another conversation. It was pretty good. And then Pierre Gasly decided that screw the furry little critters that run around the track. Technically, this was free practice, I believe.
Yeah.
But if you want to see some horrible video, you should watch a Formula One car going at full tilt as a rabbit decides that now is the most opportune time to run in the opposite direction on the track. Let's just say there wasn't any rabbit left afterwards. He needed a whole new front wing afterwards.
It was a pretty good video to watch.
Yeah, it was. You find it on Reddit on Formula One.
Yeah, if you want to see what ground effect cars can do to a furry woodland creature.
Yeah, woodland effect cars.
Didn't quite atomize it, but did leave it in more pieces than it encountered.
Pretty close. Can you imagine that getting back to the garage? You're like, what are all these? Oh, do you just hose it down?
Well, you have to remember, he's French. He's bringing back some form of guillotine.
Oh, good point. Yes. Should talk about the race?
Or guillotines.
Guillotines, race, same difference. Because kind of Max guillotined the turn 2/turn 1 situation.
That was really cool. That's all I can say.
That was a great move.
It was a great move. Yeah.
For everybody else, Oscar got a brilliant start. Absolutely straight off the line. Great speed, pulling out ahead. George who was third behind, almost got in front of Max, and they were going down whichever.
Yeah, I thought George was all ready to go past Max, and then Max goes past Oscar, and it's like.
And then they come into turn 1. I'm sorry, I've been corrected beforehand. It's turn 2
because turn 1's the little kink. The turn 2's where George Russell and Valtteri Bottas go colliding.
Oh yeah.
That's turn 1.
Turn 1. Okay. And they go into the corner, and Max just clearly. Just a little bit, breaks just a little bit later and carries so much more speed completely through. And poor Oscar actually has to back out. Not like Max is pushing you off kind of back out, but like just the whole thing just didn't work. And it was a beautiful move. And Max basically just effed off up the road. It was perfect.
Yeah, Oscar was doing a very good job of keeping him in touch, and George even wasn't too far away. And then George decided he hated his tires, decided to pit. No, Charles pitted first, I believe. And then George came out behind Charles, and I think McLaren freaked out about how powerful the undercut was and decided to pit Piastri.
I don't understand this. This is because it's the Lando Norris era, and you've got to give Lando the chance.
I have it. It's in my takes and rumors section, but I don't think it's malicious towards Oscar. I think it's just gross incompetence of.
Also true.
I still don't think they realize who they're racing. Your only challenge this season is Max Verstappen. Mm-hmm. And to be that big of a delta behind Max, like you were close behind Max, but there was, even if it was looking like it might have been trending towards a 2-stop at that point in time, even if you wait until Max pits, then you pit. Maybe with the pace that we've seen from the McLaren in the last couple of races, like, okay, get him on the second stop once we've had a little bit of field spread or something like that, or hope for a safety car.
And if you let that McLaren get free air, it goes quicker.
And
so maybe it wouldn't have been extension, but it would have been heavily damaged limitation, and he would have been able to do it. But not only did they stop him at a bad time, they also decided that was the pit stop that they were going to screw up for the day.
Yeah, well, they screwed up Lando's as well, like a little bit later.
Not by 6 seconds.
No, it was not good, and it put Oscar in traffic, and then he was battling back through traffic most of the day. On a brief note that we forgot to mention, in the Lando and Norris can't overtake saga, just has to go around the outside of George Russell, can't send it up the inside, and it's only when when George's tires started dying stupid reasons, and he had a car advantage, he was able to get past.
Yep. Gotta have the better car. Gotta have a car advantage, and gotta go around the outside.
Yeah, I think it's. I still think we have yet to see a Lando Norris overtake that doesn't involve a car advantage.
I will say today he was trying in quite a few places. I can't remember who against. It wasn't George, but he was going left and then right and then left and right, trying to take the different sides and trying different things. He was actually trying. I was quite impressed by it. But the overtakes that he pulled off were in his own normal style. So,
Yep.
something happened to the Aston Martins between Saturday and Sunday because they just went backwards.
I don't think they had the best strategy.
I do think that was part of it.
Yeah.
I also think that maybe they just worked really well on the mediums and nothing else.
Yeah, that's definitely how it feels as well, for sure. I'm trying to remember where everybody finished, but
Isaac Hadjar had a great race.
Oh man, I'm almost sad about that the Kimi Antonelli safety car versus the Alcon VSC, because Max got lucky with the VSC, but we've talked before, that's how it goes. Sometimes you're the lucky person, sometimes you're not the lucky person when it comes to safety cars. And at that point the race just seemed pretty much over because Max had like an 18-second gap. Oscar was still working his way through the field, but what Alex was holding on in third for a podium, and Isaac had done a great job. He was well in the top 10, and
top
then
6.
you had Charles catching Lewis and Lewis catching Alex for the podium spot. And, it was going to be one of these cases of what's going to happen first. Is Lewis going to catch Alex, or are they going to ask to do a swapperoo and then neither of them catch Alex? Which is how I thought the race was going to end, was they were going to be like, oh, they're switch around, and then nobody catches Alex.
And in that second safety car, McLaren and Ferrari made the same decision of to leave their number one driver on used tyres. And then
they pitted Lando Norris.
No. Oscar's the number one driver. They just don't know it yet.
That's fair.
And so they left Oscar out on old tyres, and they left Charles out on old tyres. The kind of Oscar choice, I almost kind of weirdly, okay, I can see what they were thinking possibly. Maybe he was just in the wrong place. I don't know why they didn't stop Charles. Not stopping Charles was like classic Ferrari.
I think time and time again. Well, also, Lando, I think Alex did beat Lando to the safety car line on that stuff.
Yeah.
But then because Alex pitted a lap later, which proved, that's why there's kind of nothing that happened after that, because I think that in their minds, kind of Alex gave up the position.
Yeah.
But even if Alex pits a lap later, they had time to pit Oscar, and at the worst case, I think they could have pitted both of them, for sure. And luckily it all worked out, but if it had been any less laps, Lewis was going to be right there on Oscar most likely. Maybe because that safety car took a lot of laps to clear up.
It did. It took them a long time to get, because at first they took a while to get the truck out, and then they got the truck out, and then they fixed it, and then they drove the truck the longest possible way back, and it was bouncing down the thing, and they had to wait before they could send Behrman back around again to unlap, etc., etc.
It also did take a while to collect the whole field. There was a good field spread. It took a while to collect the field. So, there were several reasons in case there that it took a while. I'm surprised they put hards on for Max for the last 10 laps. I would have put on mediums, but maybe they just didn't have a set of mediums around.
They did not have mediums. They only had one set of mediums, which is what they used in the race.
Fair enough.
I would have pitted Charles for the softs and said, try it, boy.
Yeah.
And he wanted to, but they didn't.
Yeah, so. I agree. But this kind of goes down to the F1 teams are actually bad at strategy.
Yes.
Yeah.
Ferrari don't understand the strategy word. Speaking of Lewis, he was post-interviewing and was super jazzed about life. He was he said felt the most comfortable in the Ferrari since China. And this is very confusing because yesterday they were both like, the car's terrible, it's a tractor. Truly awful. I don't know how we're going to fix this. It's terrible. And then today he's like, and bear in mind, parc fermé conditions applied. So it's not like they could change anything. They could tweak the front wing. They could tweak some of the diff settings, but they can't change the suspension. They can't change anything else. And then today they're like, no, it's great. I loved it. It was a fantastic car.
Well, Max also said on Friday that the car was terrible and they had no pace and they didn't know where they were going to go. And Max won the race.
But he could change the car between Friday and Saturday. But this was between Saturday and Sunday. They couldn't. I don't know what's going on. There was one comment I was going to make. I've forgotten it now. It doesn't matter. So, overall, good
overtakes.
Race. Overtakes overall.
There's something like 45 overtakes or something like that.
Oh wow, that's a brilliant stat. Which is funny because the whole build-up was like yesterday. It was like, well, qualifying position, you sacrifice race pace for qualifying because if you don't get qualifying, you won't be able to have the race because the race won't be able to overtake. And then everybody's just overtaking, and it was great. They got all the DRS right. It was all overtaking was everywhere, and it was wonderful.
Yeah. This kind of breaks the thought of like, oh, we can't go to these old racetracks because the cars just don't race on them very well, and the whole thing's a processional. This was brilliant.
Yeah, loved it.
If they were a little smaller, maybe we have a couple more overtaking spots. I don't think it's a reason to not make the cars any smaller, but because really there was just the made what it a turd 2. That first chicane was where a lot of it came from. But yeah, overall, Imola is awesome.
Yeah, would watch again, enjoyable race, etc., etc. But apparently it's going to lose. It's not going to be on the schedule from next year because they don't want to pay the money, and that's kind of sad.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. If you're, I feel like F1 is starting to shake down the money tree for tracks, because I think you saw this also with like the TV rights in America. We want to renegotiate these, and everybody went, no, we don't want them for that price. Like, I think you need to strike up. If Ferrari can get $50 million a year just for being Ferrari, for this legacy thing, then there should be some sort of thing of like, if you've been on the F1 calendar, or if you ran a race before the year 2000 and you want to host a race and your track's a grade 1 track, you don't have to pay the Middle East oil baron money to host a race.
I agree.
Some sort of legacy heritage. Because honestly, I think the whole sport should be on some sort of rotating schedule of tracks, one way or the other. Because, we used to go back and forth between like the Nürburgring GP course and the Hockenheimring in Germany. You got the Fuji International Raceway and also Suzuka in Japan. They used to bounce back and forth. I don't think we need 3 races in the United States, but I could go for 2 given like landmass size, but like, you think you have a staple at Coda or Coda and the Glen, and then bounce back and forth between like Miami and Vegas or something like that.
I love the idea of rotating between Vegas and Miami because they fill 2 different spots, and I think that'd be a good offset, so we don't have to deal with the stupidity of each race trying to one up each other every year. Give them 2-year gap.
But how great would like Italy be if you alternate between Imola and Monza?
Love it.
Yeah. So I think I would love to see much more of like a rotational schedule than who's just going to pay us the most money schedule.
Zandvoort and Spa could do a good rotation. I think they're close enough. I think that feels appropriate.
Yeah,
especially with Max on the grid.
I mean, Belgium and the Netherlands are practically the same country anyway.
Exactly.
At least to the German army.
Exactly. We could do Donington Park versus
Silverstone
or Brands Hatch. We could throw that in the mix too.
Yeah.
Perfect. Anyway, shall we see who the driver of the day is?
Sure. Who's your driver of the day?
My driver of the day was Max because turn 1 was such a classic move. Good job, Max. That's why we love you.
Also in the state of we don't want this to be a popularity contest. Yeah, Max was great. He put no foot wrong. That first turn move was incredible. But just to be a little different, I put Alex Albon down because I thought he had a really great day. I think this is 2 top 5 finishes for him back to back. I can double check that stat.
He's doing great, and I think.
And the Williams is doing great. Like on 2 races on pace with like not really crazy conditions, where he put the car in 5th place twice. Like that is
Carlos following up and getting in the vibe. Good team. They've got things. They just need to keep that composed. So I can get behind that. My driver who couldn't wait for it to be over was Oscar because it's the Lando Norris era. But probably really I should be more honest and say it was Charles because he got properly Ferrari'd.
Yeah, he really did. I went with Charles because he did get properly Ferrari'd.
Yeah. Who was the driver of today?
I don't know. I can look.
We always forget to cover that off because I feel that's the contrast. Somebody was saying that it was going to be Kimi. I can't believe it'd be Kimi.
It was Max.
Yeah.
He was your
about picking Max now.
Driver of the day, presented by Salesforce.
Good job, Salesforce.
Nobody's ever said that.
No, I don't think they ever have. So given that, and the driver of the day, and the people who we want to say who wanted to be ever, which team's debrief do you want to be in? This is our first attempt at the new section.
Yeah. I think you had it absolutely right. Remember, you could also pick the steward's room as well.
Also true.
Yeah. I think you had it absolutely right on as your second choice with McLaren to see the excuses.
I just wanted to see what they were like. Why did you stop me on lap whatever it was too early?
Yeah, I know I have priority, but that seems like a bit much.
Yes.
Yeah. If you just want to see joyous celebration, I'd go hang out with Williams this weekend.
Okay. No, yeah. I could see that. Yep. Good work. How's the championship looking?
Oh, did you not want to say you don't want to say Ferrari?
Well, I think that's implied, really. I mean,
because you just want to hang out with Lewis.
Well, there's that, but also who wouldn't want to be in the Ferrari debrief room to see what terrible excuses they make? Actually, I never want to be in the Ferrari debrief room because I know what they're going to do. They make a bunch of lame excuses. What I do want to be is when they have a really good weekend, I want to be in the debrief room to find out how they analyze it and whether they go, we didn't expect that. We have no idea what happened, but good job, lads.
You know what F1 debrief or team debriefs need? They need like one fan from the stands or somebody who is just, or like, you know, you can petition to be like, you know, submit the team you want to join for their debrief, and you can be like, what were you guys thinking? Like, you know, give the raw unsolicited feedback of like I would love to join the McLaren debrief today and be like, why did you pit Oscar? Oscar's not racing George. He's racing Max. George has been nowhere all season. And if he does have it have it on today, which, okay, fine, he has it on the day, you're still racing Max. Keep them next to each other to give Oscar the chance. Like, you didn't let Oscar have the chance. You know that Red Bull has tended to eat its tires. You know your car is very good on its tires. Why did you separate them by so much? Stop it.
Now I need to see you in there doing that because I really want to know what the response from McLaren is. And it's worth it. 100% worth it.
If Zach Brown just started to talk, he'd be like, no, Zach, shut up. I want real people to answer questions, not you.
Don't give me the businessman. Give me the science.
I want the technical answers, not the business answers.
Exactly. Championship watch?
Yeah, you would have to learn Italian to go hang out in the Ferrari debrief.
True.
Or just make a lot of hand gestures about like,
what are you doing? Yeah, why are you screwing up Charles's race?
Yeah, it's a language that you have to learn the gestures as well as the words, in order to truly get your point across.
Got it. Oscar still leading the championship, thank God.
Yep. Lando is second, Max is third. There are 22 points between them. We are almost a third of the way through the season. We will be after Monaco. Hopefully it's gonna be tight by the end of the season. I think the question I think is my two questions is how good is that Red Bull car really? Can Max get some wins in and things, because Max is going to need some wins because Oscar's looking really good. And then my two questions are, what's that Red Bull car like for Max, and which Lando Norris shows up? Because Oscar, I think, has already proven he has the consistency this season to be world champion. And it's going to determine, which Lando Norris shows up week in and week out, and how that plays with not only Oscar's points total, but Max's points total. Similar to how last year we were saying that if Max won the championship, it will be because of like Ferrari and Mercedes taking points off of McLaren when they needed it.
The one challenge is the rules change at Barcelona, I think it is, where the flexi wings are completely banned.
Yeah, but I don't think if we're talking about the phase change materials in their tires, I don't think flexi wings are their pace. True. And apparently they've also just moved some of that outside of the measurement area.
Oh, yeah, I heard that. That was great. We'll see what happens. I'm going to be interested to see what the new rules are and how they validate it in Barcelona.
Yeah. I do like that for all the money in Formula One and everything else, how they validate flexi wings is like, well, we've put little sticky dots on the wings and we measure how much they move.
They just need to put lines across them and lots of dots, because if you put a high density set of dots and then you track it, nobody can get away from that.
Yeah. Or
from dots.
Have a nice laser level that just goes along the back of the wing. And then when the laser disappears, your wing is flexy too much.
Yeah. Exactly. Spicy takes and rumors. Kind of did yours already.
Yep. I don't understand how F1 teams seem. I would really love a bigger insight into F1 team strategy. Like, I would love to be in the room if they're figuring some of these things out, because sometimes they just seem so inept or like unwilling to see what's going on track. Like, this was a race where everybody had plenty of opportunity to overtake, especially if you had a faster car. Mm-hmm. You have a safety car that started about, 15 laps to go?
Yep.
So you know you're going to...
it was more than that, but yes.
But you know you're pretty much going to end up with about 10, 11 laps of racing.
Yep.
So that is plenty of time to where if somebody doesn't change their tires, they are going to get gobbled up versus somebody who did change their tires. Why don't you change the tires?
That was the Ferrari message. Charles is on the radio and saying, can I go to softs in the safety car? And to which Brian comes back and says, no, there'll be 15 laps left when this safety car comes in, and we don't have any other tires that will last that long. And in the end, it was 10 laps. You'd burned off all the fuel. They should have just let Charles go for it. Give him a chance. Let Charles make the call and say, well, we're all kind of screwed in this place anyway. If it works, it works. If it doesn't, it doesn't.
Yeah, and there is some of that, I think, of like the points we have are better than the points we don't. But there's a lot of very safe decision-making in Formula One, which, it's not my millions of dollars that are being spent. So maybe that's why I'm a little bit more of a risk taker. But yeah.
But you're Ferrari. You are not in Formula One to make money. There is zero chance that the reason Ferrari is in F1 is to make money off the races. And you have made the exact same point why so many Fortune 500 companies keep shooting themselves on the foot. They're protecting what they have and not looking at what they can grow. And that's in these situations, Formula One. I get when you're in at the front and you have got a win in the bag. I understand why you may play a slightly different strategy. But when you're in the midfield, you've had a terrible weekend, and you've got your driver going like, can I try it? You should be like, sure, why not? What? How bad could it be? How far would Charles have to have fallen on softs if they'd gone off after 6 laps for it to have not been worth it?
Yeah, not to mention, if the gap between first and second is 8 points, the gap between, fifth and sixth is, 2 points.
Exactly. It's like $500,000. Who cares?
And you're Ferrari.
Exactly. It's not about the money.
It's a shit box.
It's a tractor. A beautiful red tractor. I will say my spicy...
And here I thought Lamborghini was the one that made tractors.
Yeah, that's what Jeremy Clarkson's got one.
No, they actually make tractors.
No, they do. Yeah. Because Jeremy Clarkson has one. It's what he drives around in. I'm convinced that this season is actually a really good season, and every team is full of hopium and copium huffers. And it's actually quite good because everybody's got a little bit of hope, everybody's got a little bit of stupidity, and everything's kind of still to play for.
Yeah, it's shaping up to be a pretty good season.
Yeah, who would have known? Last season of the regulations, and it's all good again. Maybe that's what Formula One needs to learn how to bottle.
I mean, every season that ends a regulation is usually a great season.
Exactly. They need to bottle that aspect of it, not the beginning of it when everybody's all split and nobody knows how to make the cars work. So
now is the reason that they're good seasons because everybody's finally learned, or are they good seasons because the front runners have stopped development to start development on the next formula?
That's the question, and we will never know the answer.
We almost actually got to find out in 2021.
We did, because everybody was like, it wasn't quite late enough that they made the decision. They made it quite early to delay because of COVID.
Yeah.
But that would have been good. The one I would have been really interested in is if they hadn't made the regulation changes to hobble the Mercedes from being too good. I would have been very curious to see what everybody else would have done.
It would have taken a while, I think.
Yeah. So,
I saw a bit on the... I saw a thing on social media the other day about Mercedes wind tunnel causing correlation problems because they put in a smooth roller instead of a bumpy roller.
Oh, interesting. You should send that link if you see it.
It's gone to the ether now. But
it's gone into the ether.
But the TLDR was when they redid their wind tunnel, they put in a smooth rolling. You have different textures you can do for the rolling floor, and they put in a very smooth one, which worked on the old formula. And then when they go to the ground effect cars, it caused the boundary layer to be a lot smaller than on a rougher surface. So that's why they had... That's why you ended up with the zero side pod design and all, because it works on an incredibly smooth surface, but not on actual road.
I, as a fully qualified, paid up, failed physicist and an armchair Formula One terrible commentator, I know that they shouldn't have put a smooth road on it. I knew that they should have put not a gravelly road, but a tarmacy road, because it will change the airflow. Pfft, you don't need Adrian Newey to know that. You just need somebody who's not a moron. Because obviously, I know what I'm talking about. Predictions for the Formula One Tagore Grand Prix de Monaco 2025. Sorry, Indianapolis 500.
Yeah, I was going to say, my sheet says Indianapolis 500. I think Pato O'Ward's going to be on the podium again, but not the top step. I'm going to say 3 or more cautions and some really good madness in the last stint as we get converging strategies. Are you actually going to watch Indy this year?
I don't have anything to stream it on, so probably not.
It's on Fox Sports.
I don't have any TV.
Okay.
I only have like.
Well, go to Amazon, spend like $30 to get an antenna, and smack it on your window.
Yeah, maybe.
Because it'll be on terrestrial television.
Okay. Is Pato O'Ward still a reserve driver for McLaren?
I believe so.
So there is still a chance that both drivers could be taken out by a disease, delayed flight, immigration issues. I don't know. And we might see Valtteri Bottas and Pato O'Ward taking part in Monaco.
Yeah, that would be.
In fact, if you're Pato O'Ward, do you drop out of Indianapolis to go to Monaco?
No, you do the Indy 500.
Yeah, I think I'd agree with that.
Although, well, he can't win Indy, and the McLaren is actually competitive, but I don't think he could get up to speed in that McLaren around Monaco fast enough. And also, Indy's a really big deal.
Yeah.
He's been second the last 2 years in a row, and and if he wins, he'll be the first Mexican to ever win the Indy Grand Prix or the Indianapolis 500.
Do you have any predictions for Monaco?
I do. I'm going to say Franco Colapinto crashes, but Gasly doesn't win.
Okay.
That is a Crashgate reference because Flavio Briatore is back. And then this year at Monaco, we've talked, or I don't know if we mentioned it yet, but they are instituting a new rule where they are mandatorying it to be a 2-stop race. Is it just softs all the time? Did they do that as well?
I don't know. I think you still got to try alternative tire compounds. You got to run the 2. I think you actually have to run 3. Like you can't just run soft, medium, soft. I think you have to do soft, medium, hard, or whatever combination.
You have to run all 3 tires.
I think so.
Yeah,
I might be wrong on that.
Hold on, let's look it up real quick. Let's take a quick pause.
While we take a pause, I will note that while you're looking it up, I'm very curious to see if they bring the C6, the softest tire in the thing, because it was terrible in qualifying and nobody really liked it, and it barely did a whole lap. Surely they would bring the softest tire again to Monaco, and that could make Monaco really spicy if the only tire that makes sense is the C6 terrible soft tire.
You have to do it for both wet and dry races, so that's interesting.
Oh, interesting.
So if it's wet, you still have to do it, but I don't see anything else.
About tire compounds.
New pit stop rules provide thrills from Grand Prix News.
They missed out. That headline should have been spills. Thrills and spills.
Drivers must use at least 3 sets of tires during the race with at least 2 different compounds in dry conditions.
Okay, so no new compound rules.
Right. But either way, somebody mentioned that the optimum strategy is probably pit stop lap 1, pit stop lap 2, go to the end.
Yep, 100%. I want someone to try this. I don't care who. Surely it should be someone who's unlikely to win or is in the wrong position. But, I will accept anybody doing this.
I just want somebody to like some team to be like, no, we couldn't do that. No. And then like they run the simulation and it's just like, actually, maybe we could.
Now you've got me thinking that it should be the person who's on pole.
I would love for like the pole sitter to come in at the end of lap 1 and then the end of lap 2. Oh, that would be so good.
And then just wait for everybody to slowly but surely proceed past them. Love it. Perfect. Every way. My predictions for the Formula One Tagore Grand Prix de Monaco 2025 is Charles is on pole, leads the entire race, including having the fastest lap, and then gets asked by Ferrari to move over and let Lewis by at the end so Lewis can end up with a podium. I know that some of that seems very complicated because if he's leading, but in the process of letting Lewis past, whoever's in third sneaks past, and it all nets out.
But that would mean that Lewis would be in second and already on the podium.
No, he could be in fourth.
Charles is on pole, leads the entire race, including fastest lap. So Charles has to be in the first position when Lewis rocks it behind him.
No, you're applying logic to this. This is Ferrari.
Okay, so you've just guaranteed that your prediction won't work because 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 it'd be like Charles leads every single lap and has the most overtakes of non-lapped cars or something like that.
And the best thing about this is it seems absurd, but it still might happen.
I mean, it's equally as likely that Charles bins it on the way to the grid and doesn't get to take part again.
I mean, that's happened how many times now? Twice?
It'd be one of those I had two nickels moments.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. My second prediction is the mandatory two-stop does nothing and does not make the race any more exciting.
I think that is true if F1 teams are very boring.
Which they are.
Yeah. I think it could be interesting if they do the thing where they say, hey, you had to run all three compounds. I think that could be more interesting. I think it would be interesting if somebody does the stupid strategy that just might work that we talk about of pit, stop, or pit, go.
That would be exciting in the most boring way possible, because you'd see it happen and you'd be like, oh, it's working, and there would be no, you just see it coming to you.
I wonder how quickly the other teams would try to cover it off.
It's going to be so interesting. F1 strategists, please drop us a hint anonymously whether you're going to try this or not, or at least tell us what the simulation is for those of you who know F1 people. And I know some of you listening must know an F1 person. My last prediction does tie back to my first prediction. Piastri wins because Max gets a penalty, and I would like to point out how this can happen.
Charles, who's leading?
Charles is who is leading. Lewis is in fourth, and Max is in second, and Piastri is in third.
I feel like we're going to need a whiteboard diagram in the show notes or something for everybody to work this out.
Charles gets told to let Lewis pass for some reason. I'm sure there's many reasons how this could happen. And in the process of trying to make that happen, not only does Lewis get past Charles has to go all the way to the back, leading Max to be in the lead, and then Max is going to get a penalty for doing something stupid there, and then Piastri will get the win.
All right, we'll write that down because I didn't follow it.
It's perfect. Thank you for listening to our podcast once more in the most exciting way possible. Unless you have anything else to talk about. Do you have anything else you'd like to say? Did we miss anything?
Not on air.
Not on air, okay. We are waiting, as always, for your feedback, conspiracy theories, etc., 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 at feedback@tinfoilhelmets.com. Tell us what you'd like to talk about. Let us know about how the strategy was evaluated in your team. And then tell your friends to listen, rate, and subscribe to the most interesting podcast from the Pacific Northwest about Formula One.
Do. Max Verstappen.
Yep. Do.
I will say, if you are only a Formula One watcher and you have not watched the Indianapolis 500, it is quite a spectacle to watch. It is worth viewing.
It's too long for me to do that, and so I have to watch the highlights.
But see, so you and I have talked about on this podcast about how we like to watch the strategy unfold, and we wish F1 teams would take bolder strategies. There are teams at the Indianapolis 500 that take big strategy swings because, languishing down in P20 at the Indy 500 does nothing for you and your team, while winning, because it is, it can change your team's whole trajectory if you win the Indianapolis 500. It is the only thing anybody cares about when it comes to IndyCar racing. There's a whole series, and they do race on road courses. They also race on ovals, but the cycling adage would be your career is a success if you win one stage in the Tour de France, sort of thing. If you win, it doesn't matter how many other bike races you take part in. If you win a stage in the Tour de France, you're great. It's the same kind of thing. If you win the Indianapolis 500, that you are remembered if you never win another single race.
Your place in history is secure.
Yeah, exactly. You are. Remember that time that underdog driver did the thing.
Mm.
Yeah. So you get teams that start to do these really interesting strategies, or how they're going to pull it off, or safety car hanging and things like that of and sometimes it works because Indy can be a little bit chaotic. There was I think it was a race Helio Castroneves won back in the early 2000s that I remember watching, and you had it kind of ended up being a small dud because there was a yellow with two laps to go and the race finished under yellow, but you had I forget who the two drivers were. I think Helio ended up winning it. But you had, I think it was Helio out on old tires. And, his lap times were down to 208 mile an hour averages or something like that. Because he was on fuel mileage to make the distance. And I think it was like Marco Andretti's like first Indy car or Indy 500. And they pitted him, like they did a green flag pit stop in like the last 15 laps for, I think tires and short fuel. Cause, and he essentially had to make up the lap on Helio, but he was doing like 220, 230 lap averages, like 225 lap averages. So he was gaining 20 miles an hour on him on this 2.5 mile over the course of like the last 10 laps. And it was like, everybody's projection was like, this is going to come down to the last 2 laps. And then sadly there was a safety car and we didn't get to see it, but it was still just one of these things of like, it's do you go for fuel mileage or do you go for speed? When Alexander Rossi won a couple of years ago, he did one pit stop less than everybody else because he was able to make the mileage work. So there's a lot of that happening, and that's what happens when you allow for refueling in a motorsport. Of sometimes you got to make the fuel mileage work, and it's crazy to think the race comes down to fuel mileage when you're doing 220 miles an hour, but it does.
It's all about the fuel. Maybe if somebody puts it on free streaming this year, I'll be able to watch it because Will Buxton will be there. Because I can't. Hopefully, I know he's a bit brouhaha, full of excitement, but sometimes I find the American commentators a bit much.
I mean, I am sure there is a pirated stream out there somewhere. I won't help you find it, but I'm sure there is.
Yeah, I'm sure there is somewhere on the high seas, as they say.
But it might be the greatest spectacle in motorsport.
Ooh.
Well, it's not Monaco.
Le Mans?
Le Mans is great, but Le Mans is great. I'm not going to say Le Mans is not great, but I think Indy hits that sweet spot of like being long enough that like complicated strategy matters, but not like, oh my gosh, we're doing a 24-hour race.
And so you don't have to worry about 3 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah, and it's like yeah, I can. Indy's going to take 2.5, 3 hours to run. Like, so yeah. But it takes about the same length as a football game, and I watch football games, so I can sit down, I can kind of watch the whole thing. I know that like you're not going to win it in the first half, but you're not going to lose it in the first 100 laps. So you can kind of start to check in around like lap 101. Really, lap 150 is really when you need to start checking in the last 50 laps. And the commentators will keep you up to speed on who's going or who's where and what's going on. But yeah, I think as far as the spectacle goes, it's a very good motorsport spectacle.